Welcome to the 5-Pack, where we talk about the 5 things that matter, 5 things that will matter, and a daily pack rip. Here is your host, Kyle Elfrink.
Welcome in on a Friday right here at the 5-Pack. Kyle Elfrink with you on the Better Sports Network. Hope all is well in your world, and we are here to get you set about the sports world right here on the 5-Pack. What do? Well, every day we do the same thing, but it's always different. It's 5 things that matter right now. It's 5 things that will matter. And of course, it is our end of the show pack break, which I'll be honest with you. Today I had options. You know, yesterday we did some 91 Upper Deck football. We could go 92 Upper Deck football. We could go Canadian football. Really? Canadian? We could go the OHL, the Ontario Hockey League. We could go with some more football, Pacific Plus. Hell, I could give you a pack we've never opened, 93 Donruss, but no. Let's go back to our old standby. 1990 Donruss Baseball. Yes, for all you Donruss lifers, people who just can't get enough Donruss Baseball, today's your day. 1990 coming your way at the end of the show. Before we dig too deep into the 5 things that matter right now, want to again point you in the direction of our friends over at fantasyalarm.com. Head there right now, and even though the calendar says June 23rd, and even though the NFL season does not start until early September, and even though you might not even be thinking about the upcoming fantasy football season, it's time to start thinking about that upcoming fantasy football season. Fantasyalarm.com, you can right now get a hold of this, the Fantasy Football Draft Guide, $26.99, or it is totally free with any subscription. So hit it up. You can do a 7-day trial as well to kind of see what you are enjoying if you sign up on a subscription side. Fantasyalarm.com. And if you want to go right to the draft guide, /draft guide is how to do it. Okay. Let's get into the fun. Let's get into the games. Let's get you set. I realize your life is busy. You can't be like me. Can't sit on the couch all night watching baseball, football, drafts. You can't. Actually, I don't get to do that either. I got a family. I got to eat. There's things I have to do like mow the lawn. But all of us, me included, get to come here each and every day on the 5-Pack, and we get caught up on what we might have missed. So let's get caught up on what you might have missed and what matters. And we start in one place. Got to be the place we start. We had the NBA draft last night. Now, I will say the NBA draft, bit of a letdown last night. I was kind of looking forward to this. Now, in addition to what I talked about yesterday, you know, we just don't know everybody anymore like we used to. We have a lot of guys we've never seen play, honestly. But additionally, we didn't have many trades last night. It was really ho-hum. No big names on the move. There was a big name on the move before the draft, which we'll talk about coming up. But in terms of the draft, it was, I don't know, a bit of a letdown. Like at number 1, we have known literally for like 2 years who's going number 1. And what do you know? He went number 1 last night. Victor Wembanyama, the giant Frenchman. There he is. For many of us, this was our first, like, oh, that's what he looks like. What are these? 7'4", 7'5", 80-inch wingspan. Adam Silver is not a short guy, but he looked short last night compared to all these youngsters. Like every dude drafted, I don't know if anybody noticed this, but like every dude was 18 years, 19 years old. 22 years old? Get out of here. You ain't getting drafted anymore. Spurs go with Wembanyama. Obviously, that was the call. This is the 3rd time in Spurs history that they have drafted number 1 overall. Good luck to Wembanyama living up to the first 2. That was David Robinson and Tim Duncan. Although everybody's already kind of chiseling out Wembanyama's statue, if you will, for Springfield, Massachusetts, the Hall of Fame. We'll see how many NBA titles he can win. There was some intrigue at 2 and 3. Brandon Miller of Alabama, he goes at 2 to Charlotte. Scoot Henderson goes at 3 to Portland. No shocker there, but a lot of people were whispering about trades. Maybe the Hornets going after Zion. Maybe the Trailblazers trading for a vet. So no surprise at 2 and 3. Really, all of the names we expected to see early, we got to see early. Now, look at number 4 and number 5 there. Thompson and Thompson, Amen and Asar Thompson. Those are indeed brothers. Amen going to Houston, Asar going to Detroit. Number 4 and number 5 overall. They are indeed the most highly drafted set of brothers in a single NBA draft. They are identical twins, as you can probably tell there. The previous record was, I think, Marcus and Markieff Morris, who went like 13 and 14, well over a decade ago. So pretty well the draft went as expected. Probably the other big piece of news here was Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore of Villanova. There were a lot of pre-draft analysis, mocks, all that stuff that had Cam Whitmore of Villanova, who only played a year with the Wildcats. They had him as a top 5 player. I mean, there were some big boards who had him as a top 3 player. Last night, it was kind of the storyline is that Cam Whitmore just kept falling and falling and falling. Eventually was grabbed, saved by the Houston Rockets, who not only got Amen Thompson, but they got Cam Whitmore. So he lands at number 20. The reason for the fall, there were some medical concerns. There were workout concerns. People whispered about interviews. I guess you throw all this together. He didn't fit as well. He's a gunner. And one thing with Houston is like all they have right now are a bunch of gunners. So I don't know that Cam Whitmore really fits well for Houston, but it was almost like, we can't let this stud fall any further. I mean, this guy could average 20 points a game in the NBA. So that was kind of the proverbial falling knife. We always see that NFL draft, NBA draft. There's a guy every year. Last night was Whitmore. The other takeaway, at least for me, on this draft last night, the guy who got selected, I believe it was number 13 by Toronto. Now, he is a KU grad. I am a Mizzou grad. We are born and raised to hate all things Kansas. So understand where I'm coming from here. But Grady Dick was drafted by the Toronto Raptors. He's a 6'6" forward. Pretty well considered by everybody a top 15 player. And he may very well be a top 15 player, but Grady Dick is going to walk away from this experience known for 2 things. One, his outlandish and, dare I say, stupid outfit. And B, he will be known for begging Toronto Raptors fan Drake to become friends with him. Here he is after being selected by the Raptors last night.
Now I'm looking forward to it. Got to get out there, see Drake. I've been saying it a bunch, but I'm looking forward to that.
You hyped to become boys with Drake overnight? It's going to happen.
Of course, that's the goal. I need him to wear my jersey. That's how I know. That's my priority.
Ugh. Did he hunt down the costume section of the Thriller video for that outfit last night? What in the world? I don't even. I've seen Grady Dick a couple of times play as a freshman for Kansas. He seemed okay. Hell, he's a really good player. He's a top 20 pick, but gotta get some fashion sense. And you can't beg for the big time celebrity fan to, come on, man, hit me up on Twitter, please. Come on, please. Oh, well, NBA draft is in the books. Now, I mentioned that there was nothing really exciting in terms of in-draft trades. Kind of made for a boring watch last night. As we move to item number 2 on What Matters, we get to talk about a trade that went down before last night's NBA draft, and it kind of piggybacks on something we discussed yesterday on the 5-Pack. We were talking about the Washington Wizards. Just this week, they've traded Bradley Beal. They traded Kristaps Porzingis. Kind of sounds like Kyle Kuzma is going to be moving on. Yes, indeed, they are a full-blown rebuild. I complained about this yesterday. The fact that the Wizards traded their 2 best players, Beal and Porzingis, and didn't get a single first-round pick. Well, now I have to change my tune because the Washington Wizards made another trade yesterday. Chris Paul, who they got in the Bradley Beal deal, and nobody thought Chris Paul was staying with Washington. Well, the Wizards have now traded Chris Paul, and they did get a first-round pick. They flipped Chris Paul to Golden State, and they get a first-round pick in 2030. 7 years from now. So Chris Paul joins the Golden State Warriors. Chris Paul is on a very fascinating journey. Chris Paul is going to go to the Hall of Fame. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But Chris Paul still does not have an NBA title. So Chris Paul's going to Golden State because, hey, over the last decade, if you want a ring, where do you go? You go to Golden State. And they still have Steph Curry. They still have Klay Thompson. I would suggest with this move, Draymond Green is almost certain to come back. Here's where we're at with Chris Paul. This is now his 6th NBA team. He will be entering his 19th season. I can't even keep track of all the places Chris Paul has been. Clippers, Warriors now, Oklahoma City, Phoenix. Like, he's been everywhere, making his way around the league. We'll see if he gets the title. I kind of scratch my head with Chris Paul going to Golden State because Golden State is like up and down, race it up the court, quick threes, let Steph Curry jack it up from 32 feet away. Chris Paul, throughout his career, has been much more of a traditional point guard and isn't really a guy who pushes the pace. Now, it's not impossible for him to push the pace, but it's not really how he plays. Steve Kerr said to be in love with the idea of a point guard like Chris Paul. We'll see how it works. I would suggest Draymond Green coming back. Now, on the other side, the Wizards, they didn't just get that first pick first round pick in 2030. They did also get Jordan Poole, and that's an interesting part of this deal, too. Jordan Poole is only 24 years old. 2 years ago, Jordan Poole broke out for the Golden State Warriors. He turned it into a big, fat contract, and the sky looked like it was the limit for Jordan Poole. It looked like he was going to be there with Thompson and Curry and these guys who would be raining three-pointers for the next half decade. Instead, Jordan Poole is now with the Washington Wizards. Now, if you are a Jordan Poole Dynasty League owner, you love this because Jordan Poole is now going to a Wizards team that has nobody else to really shoot the basketball. And I will make the bet right now, Jordan Poole is going to average 22 points a game for the Wizards this year because he's going to take 25 shots a game. I mean, that's how they're built. And they got a guy who can score. He got a guy who can gun it. The reason he fell out with the Warriors is twofold. One, his contract's huge. He is entering the start of a 4-year deal. He's 24 years old. He's still young, but he's got a ton of money coming his way in the next 4 years. Frankly, the Warriors couldn't afford it. And Poole was coming off a pretty rough playoffs. Didn't look good in the postseason for Golden State. And then the other big looming story here is if you rewind the clock back to October of last year, right before the season started, we had the leaked footage of Draymond Green, in effect, clobbering his teammate Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole mouthed off, and that didn't go over well with Draymond Green, who punched him right in the face. So there was that fallout. It never seemed to get smoothed over. I will say for the Warriors, it's great. This is the difficulty of a dynasty. When do you say, okay, the dynasty's over? Obviously, the Warriors are not saying that. They just brought in a guy who's going to make $30 million at the age of 39. Now, it's a 1-year contract, but you traded away a guy who was 24 years old for a 39-year-old. And again, there are other circumstances here. But the Warriors still think, hey, this window's open. Let's take advantage of it. Let's get the last ring, if you will. We'll see how it works out. Warriors did not vault up into the favorites on the futures market for the NBA. We're still looking at Phoenix and Boston and Denver certainly all being ahead of the Warriors, but they did make up a bit of ground. Let's move to item number 3. We'll shift away from the NBA for the time being and go to the world of baseball, where yesterday the best team in baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays, was taking on perhaps the worst team in baseball, taking on the Kansas City Royals. And we previewed this matchup yesterday, and we said, hey, man, Shane McClanahan, best pitcher in baseball. The dude's 11-1. He gets to face the Royals today. He is going to have 12 wins before the halfway point of the season. Well, not so fast, Kyle Elfrink. Shane McClanahan did not get the win. In fact, Shane McClanahan left early in this game yesterday against the Royals with a back injury. Now, we don't think it's an IL stint, but I guess that's why nobody wins 25 games anymore. There's always something. Furthermore, with the Rays, McClanahan didn't get the win. Even the Tampa Bay Rays didn't get the win at home against Kansas City. Now, I realize you can't believe what I'm saying. The Royals beat the Rays. I get it. So let's prove it to you. Let's show you how the Royals actually beat the Rays.
Loaded and 2 down. Line, base hit right field. Salvi scores. Here's Melendez. And the throw will be offline. And Drew Waters ties the game with a 2-out, 2-run single in the 8th. And now MJ Melendez, who has 2 hits tonight. And MJ hits a slow roller to the right side. Diaz flips to Fairbanks.
He can't make the catch. It drops next to him. Melendez is safe. Garcia scores. The Royals take the lead. 6-5 in the top of the 9th inning.
6-5 Kansas City with a runner aboard, representing the potential tying run and the potential winning run at the plate in Paredes.
There goes Rayleigh, and the pitch is swung on and missed. And the Royals have a 6-5 come from behind win in Tampa Bay.
So I wasn't lying. There's the proof. It happened. 6-5 Royals win. Bally Sports with the footage there. Now, it's one thing to lose to the Royals, but that's not the biggest story here. Probably a bigger story even than McClanahan getting injured is the fact that before the game yesterday, the Rays put out their starting 9 and there was no Wander Franco. Now, you might say, well, a Thursday game, a lot of times the stars sit. That was not the case with Wander Franco. No, indeed. Wander Franco being disciplined. He didn't miss just yesterday. The Rays came out and said he's not going to play tonight. Now, why are the Tampa Bay Rays benching a guy who, frankly, has probably been one of the top 10 overall players in all of baseball this year? Seriously, if you throw in what he's done offensively, what he's done defensively, playing shortstop, Wander Franco has been like a top 10 overall player this year. So what the heck's going on? Well, Kevin Cash, the manager, gave us the rundown before yesterday's game.
Really good kid, really good person. He's a young player that is learning and dealing with the challenges of being a major league player and some of the frustrations that come with it. Over the course of this season, there's been probably multiple times that the way he has handled his frustrations have not been the way that we ask our players to uphold being the best teammate. That being said, we're going to continue to support Wander as he works through this.
Man, somebody has told Kevin Cash, make eye contact with the camera. I felt like I was sitting in Kevin Cash's managerial room, right? Wow. 2-game sit down. Now, what's real? From all I've gathered, all I've read, everything being reported, it sounds like Wander Franco just kind of gets pissed off whenever things don't go his way. And we've all seen this. We all grew up. We were all 8 years old at one point, and you'd have people who would throw bats, throw helmets. You know, by the time you become a quote-unquote adult, and I realize Wander Franco is really young. At the majors, occasionally you can do it, but when you're doing it every time you make an out, that appears to be the case. And we don't know what's going on in the clubhouse, but Wander Franco, in effect, is just like, hey, grow up, dude. This is the major leagues. You don't have to pout after popping out in the 3rd inning, okay? We don't slam our bats and throw things and yell and scream. So it's just like grow up. Now, I looked at Wander Franco. I mentioned for the year like a top 10 player. I mean, this season, he is batting about 290. He's got 8 homers, 34 ribbies, 41 runs scored, and 24 steals. Like, he is a 5-category stud. But for this month of June has not been good. We got Wander Franco hitting 250. He's got 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 6 runs scored, and 4 steals in 17 games. So this appears to be one of those slumps that, like, everybody goes through. But for Wander Franco, he's kind of making too big of a deal of it. And, hey, I applaud anybody, like a Kevin Cash or anybody who says, yeah, you're a star. You're probably going to make the All-Star game. But act your age, dude. Franco not going to be in the lineup tonight. Rays and Royals meeting again. It'll be Zach Greinke going up against Zach Eflin in that one. Last night, Tampa was, I think, minus 340 or minus 350 for the win. They didn't get it. Tonight, they're all the way down to minus 250. Now, again, yesterday you had McClanahan on the hill. Tonight, it'll be Eflin. But not quite the favorite on this Friday night like they were on Thursday night. Okay, let's go to item number 4. We'll stay in the world of baseball. We will go to the team that currently sits atop the American League's Central Division. And they're at the top with a 500 record. 38-38 is the record for the Minnesota Twins after they got a victory yesterday. And I wanted to point out this win, and I wanted to tell you that it matters because we saw something with the Twins in Minneapolis that we have not seen from any Minnesota Twin pitcher in 5 years. And it's nothing like spectacular or extraordinary or something that never happens or, oh my God, can you believe we went to a game and this occurred? At least that's the way I feel. Maybe I'm wrong because yesterday in Minneapolis, let's just say people were amped for the ninth inning because Joe Ryan, starting pitcher for the Twins, is a good pitcher. Joe Ryan was allowed to go out in the ninth inning of yesterday's game against the Boston Red Sox, and he was allowed, nobody lets you do this in baseball, but he was allowed to go out and earn a complete game shutout. Could he do it? Let's take a look.
Patiently waiting atop the mound as Durant digs back in. The 1-2, he struck him out swinging. A fastball at 92, strikeout number 9 for Ryan.
Another 2-2. Popped up right side. It's such a rarity. Fans here at Target Field are acting or reacting like they're watching a possible no-hitter.
12 complete games across the big leagues this year.
Behind Yoshida, 2 balls and no strikes. And the pitch, a swing, a pop fly, left field playable. Willie Castro in the sunshine, he calls, he catches, and the Twins win the game, shut out the Red Sox, and Joe Ryan throws his first career complete game shutout, and the first complete game shutout by a Twins pitcher in over 5 years.
Over 5 years since that team has had a complete game shutout. It's baseball 2023 for the season. That is the 10th complete game shutout, which was actually higher than I would have guessed. Nobody in baseball has thrown more than one. Joe Ryan was on it. And if you haven't been following, Joe Ryan's actually been a really good pitcher for the last year plus. Yesterday, 9 shutout innings, obviously. He had 9 strikeouts, no walks, only 3 hits allowed. For the season, he's 8-4. For the season, his whip is like 0.9. And another thing with the Twins, and this is why, you know, I picked Minnesota before the season started to win the AL Central, and their pitching has been great this year. Like Joe Ryan, Sonny Gray, Pablo Lopez. Tonight, they're bringing back Kenta Maeda. If you look at all of the starting pitching rankings this year, the statistical rankings, the Twins starting pitchers as a group are like top 5 in all the categories. I wrote them down here. They are, let me look at it. 4th in ERA, 2nd in whip, 2nd in walks per 9, 4th in Ks per 9, 3rd in hits per 9. Like, they're great. So why are they 38-38? They're 38-38 because the hitting's not there. Like, Carlos Correa has sucked this season. Byron Buxton's not been very good. Now, he had 2 home runs yesterday. Maybe he's coming out of it. But really, their offense has let them down. And they spend money on their offense, and it has let them down. So they're 38-38. Mentioned tonight, Maeda coming off the IL. He'll be pitching in Detroit. First pitch for that game is 6:40. Minnesota minus 125 to get the win. They are currently 1 game up on the Cleveland Guardians. Cleveland, for this weekend, it's going to be hosting Milwaukee. So the Brewers trying to turn around a bit of a slide in the NL Central. They're taking on the Guardians tonight. It'll be Wade Miley and Shane Bieber. So a bit of a back and forth there going on in the AL Central, but currently Minnesota with a 1-game edge. Finally, let's go to our 5th sports bit of news that matters today. We go out west. We've been talking a lot this week about the San Francisco Giants. Well, I'm here to tell you that we're going to talk about the Giants again, but this time it's about a loss. The 10-game winning streak is over. Yesterday, the San Diego Padres beating up on the Giants. They ended that winning streak with an absolute door slam. 10-0, the final score for the Padres. San Diego got 3 home runs in this game. The biggest one of them came in the first inning from a guy who suddenly, like, literally was dead. Literally, everybody giving up on this guy. Yet in this month of June, He's going bonkers. I give you the return of the Sanchez.
It was a fly ball, struck pretty well to deep left center field. Back goes Slater. He's at the wall. It's gone! A 3-run home run for Gary Sanchez. Well, they make Wood pay for the 2 walks. They both turn into runs on the 3-run shot for Gary Sanchez. 7th home run in a Padres uniform for the Padres catcher.
Okay, kudos on the home run. Okay, and a lot of home runs. 75. What's the number here? 75 plate appearances. Gary Sanchez has 7 home runs with the Padres. He has 18 ribbies. Like what San Diego's getting from Sanchez is totally unexpected. Need I remind you, nobody signed him in free agency this year. He caught on with the Giants in spring camp. They cut him. I think they sent him to the minors, then they cut him. Landed with the Mets, who are terrible, or have been terrible at catching this year. Francisco Alvarez has looked a lot better over the past few weeks. But he landed with the Mets, couldn't cut it with the Mets. They released him. And the Padres say, what the heck, man? We're hurting at catcher. Gary Sanchez is free. Let's take a shot. And he's done well. Now, has he turned around the fortunes of the Padres? No. I mean, that team, I don't know how it's this way, but it is this way. They're 36-39. No idea why. And Gary Sanchez is doing the best he can. Like I said, 7 home runs and 75 plate appearances. I would not get excited about Gary Sanchez because here's the other side of the story. He's hitting .214 even in this run of 7 home runs and 75 plate appearances. Beyond that, the dude has a 21-5 K to walk rate. Gary Sanchez is the same dude. He's just making enough contact, lifting the ball enough. He's always had power, but he's not a good player. Is he a good catcher? It depends what you're looking for. His defense sucks. He hits for no average, but he can pop a home run. So I wouldn't get carried away with the run here by Gary Sanchez. I don't think we're going to wake up in October and he's hit 28 home runs. But he's at least a positive in a bad year for San Diego. I mentioned that record. Right now, they are 9.5 back in the NL West. And you might say, oh, yeah, but the wild card. And you're right. Oh, but the wild card. They are 5.5 back in the wild card, which at this juncture is just full-blown disappointment. Now, this weekend, they got a chance to make up ground. They've got Washington coming to town. And frankly, like the Padres need to sweep it. Tonight, they've got Joe Musgrove going up against Patrick Corbin. This needs to be a sweep for San Diego. 5.5 back, you're not finished, but you're close to finished in the NL West. The Padres at this moment, if you're a Friar believer, the Padres are plus 130 to make the playoffs. Not to win the NL West, plus 130 to just make the postseason. Maybe as that last wild card team, but they need to make up some ground, sitting at 5.5 back. Okay, those are the 5 things that matter on this Friday. We'll take a breather here. When we come back, the 5 things that will matter as you go into your Friday, even as you go into your weekend. Before any of that, though, let's give you a highlight from earlier today. A better morning comes your way each and every day here on BSN at 8 a.m. And the crew was talking about Victor Wembanyama earlier today.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, obviously, out of these 3, it has to be Wemby. I don't really see Miller or Henderson just having that it factor to come over and take over a franchise and make a run for Rookie of the Year. But that said, I think that Wembanyama's slight frame really makes me worry about injury. And Corey, you mentioned Chet Holmgren. He went number 2 overall last year. He missed his entire season because of a Lisfranc injury. Wembanyama already has a pretty extensive injury history. In 2020, he had a stress fracture in his fibula. In 2021, he broke his finger. Later that year, he got a bone contusion in his shoulder. And then in 2022, he had a muscle injury. I believe that his skill set is there, but I need to see him on the court and make sure that he is durable before laying any money down.
Welcome back to the 5-Pack. Next up, the 5 things that will matter. Here's Kyle Elfrink.
was talking earlier about that Fantasy Alarm football draft guide. As always, want to remind you, certainly as you maybe go into a quiet weekend and you're looking for something to keep you entertained, why not check out the world of best ball fantasy, right? I mean, I know that draft guide and everything they do at Fantasy Alarm tackles best ball, but Underdog Fantasy, that is a spot to check out if you are interested in big-time cash by playing best ball. And we've got a special for you right now. Go to fantasyalarm.com/underdog. fantasyalarm.com/underdog. Right now, when you use the promo code FANTASYALARM, all one word, you will get a deposit match up to $100 with Underdog Fantasy. And again, they're huge for best ball season. And if you're not familiar with best ball, a very fun way to participate in fantasy football, a very fun way to keep you active in the sport in the middle of summer, and a very fun way to win some cash. And the beauty for a lot of people is I make my decisions on draft day, and then I'm done. No more decisions. And I hope I cross my fingers that the money comes in. So do it today with Underdog Fantasy. And when you sign up, when you use that promo code Fantasy Alarm, you will get a deposit match all the way up to $100. Okay, let's move along into the 5 things that will matter as we keep things grooving on the 5-pack for this Friday edition on BSN. We start in Omaha, Nebraska. Yes, I continue to sing the praises of the College World Series. I hope that you've been watching this thing because it's been a very fun and entertaining last week. We are now nearing the championship run, the 3-game matchup, but we have to find out, okay, who's going to be there? So last night we had that winner-take-all game. I talked about it on the 5-pack, LSU against Wake Forest. It was an epic winner advances, loser is done kind of matchup between the Demon Deacons and the Tigers. Into the bottom of the 11th inning, 0-0 our score until this pitch.
And he hung one. Did he get it? Did he get it? Yes, he did. Tommy Tanks walks it off. And the LSU Tigers will face the Gators in the finals.
Tommy Tanks, Tommy White with the 2-run walk-off homer in the bottom of the 11th inning. ESPN with the call there. Carl Ravitch, by the way, on that call there. Demon Deacons, #1 team in the country. They will not be in the championship. Mention Tommy Tanks. Don't you just love a nickname like Tommy Tanks? Doesn't that nickname fit the look of Tommy Tanks? Talking about Tommy White. Here he is after the game talking about the big victory and getting LSU in to the national title series.
I don't know. It's pretty unreal. I don't think I realized what I did until I probably sleep on it or something. Yeah, holy cow. That was cool. Oh, dude, I'm so happy. We get to keep playing baseball. That's it. I mean, that's what we came here to do. We're not going to change anything we do for the situation. We're just going to keep playing baseball. I mean, you got to think, like, the first person to score first is going to win that game. Awesome job to Louder. He's an unbelievable pitcher. Paul, we've seen over and over again. But yeah, that was fun. That was awesome.
Yes, indeed, Tommy Tanks. It was fun. And you do get to keep playing baseball. They'll take a day off today. Well-deserved for LSU. Now, Florida hasn't played, I think, since Tuesday. They will do a best-of-3 championship series. I love how they do it in college baseball. That will begin tomorrow night. LSU and Florida, a couple of SEC rivals facing off. Let's see, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. That's on ESPN. Game 2 will be Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, also on ESPN. And if needed, the championship matchup, if they have to go to a third game, that will be Monday night, 7 o'clock, if necessary, between LSU and Florida. But should be a fun weekend. Like I said, if you haven't checked it out, certainly tomorrow night, if you find yourself looking for something to do, why not tune in to a little college baseball? Okay, let's go to item number 2 on what will matter. You know, we're talking about the San Francisco Giants and the end of their 10-game winning streak. There is still a very long winning streak that is alive tonight in Cincinnati. the lovable Reds. What do they call themselves? America's team. The Reds are looking for their 12th straight victory tonight, but they're going to have to do it against the Atlanta Braves. Yes, indeed, the Braves are coming to town. Can't wait to see. Come on, Reds fans. Give us at least 30,000 for this game tonight. Big showdown. Reds are the talk of baseball. The Braves are the Braves. They're going to get going tonight, 6:40. A.J. Smith-Shawver against Luke Weaver. It's going to be your matchup, 6:40. Other matchups, let's see, 4:10 on Saturday. Jared Schuster against TBD. And then 1:40 on Sunday. That's going to be Charlie Morton going up against Ben Lively. Now, we talk a lot about the Reds, an 11-game winning streak. The Braves actually come into town with an 8-game winning streak. And I do have to say, these two teams, Braves and Cincinnati, may feature, and this is a very competitive statement I'm going to make, are the two most exciting players in baseball going to be in this series this weekend in Cincinnati, Ohio. You can make the case for Ronald Acuna Jr. and Elly De La Cruz as perhaps the two most exciting players in baseball. Like De La Cruz, okay, he's been here 3 weeks, but it's still exciting. He's a huge, lanky, hard-hitting dude. It's exciting to watch. Now, Ronald Acuna Jr., we know the situation with him. I did want to point this out with Acuna Jr. Like, if somebody, hey, Shohei Ohtani is great. I get it. There's a lot of great players. Acuna Jr. is having an epic season. Entering tonight, Ronald Acuna hitting .324. He is getting on base at a 400 clip, and his slug is over 550. Beyond that, I mean, just, and I want these numbers because we're not even halfway through the season. And thus far, Ronald Acuna has 15 homers. Thus far, 46 ribbies. Thus far, 64 runs scored. Thus far, 32 stolen bases. We are not halfway through the season. If we have a guy hit .320 with 120 runs scored, 35 homers, 60 stolen bases, and like 100 ribbies, it literally goes down as one of the greatest seasons of all time. And I get it. People have been talking about Ronald Acuna. They know he's great. MVP odds right now. National League, Acuna is minus 140. Compare that to the American League. Shohei Ohtani, minus 475. Like, Ohtani's running away with the vote. Acuna not running away with it. I mean, right behind him, well, not right behind him, but you got Carroll, Freddie Freeman. It's Acuna and Ohtani, man. Those two guys are going wild. And we'll get to see more of Acuna this week in Cincinnati. But who'd have thunk it? Late June, and probably the series of the weekend, it's the Braves and the Reds. Couple of first-place teams going at it tonight. Again, 6:40 this evening, 4:10 on Saturday, and 1:40 on Sunday, if you're looking for that action. Well, I just mentioned Ronald Acuna. Who's the name I mentioned with him? Shohei Ohtani. As we get to item number 3 of what will matter, might want to point you in the direction of Denver, Colorado, because guess who's coming to the Mile High City? Oh, yes, Shohei Ohtani is coming to Coors Field. Shohei Ohtani arrives at Coors Field as the #1 leader in baseball for home runs this year. He's got 24 of them. He is also #1 in all of baseball in RBIs with 58 of them. So we get to bring Shohei Ohtani to the mile-high altitude of Denver, Colorado. That should be exciting, right? You might be wondering, well, nowadays everybody plays everybody, and everybody goes to every city. Well, Shohei Ohtani is back in Denver, Colorado for the first time since about 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, Shohei Ohtani came to Coors Field, not for a game between the Angels and the Rockies. Shohei Ohtani came to Coors Field for the All-Star game. You might recall he pitched in the 2021 All-Star game. I think he was the starter in that game at Coors Field. But the night before the All-Star game, Shohei Ohtani got to take his hacks as part of the Home Run Derby at Coors Field. And he did have this moonshot, which went over 500 feet at Coors Field.
So I asked, you said Gucci about.
Now, wait a second. Oh my gosh, that was off the facing of the uppermost level where the fans are.
I told you it's going to get up there. And don't
think you can do it in a real game? Gonna be fun to watch, right? Ohtani and the Angels opening up a series in Coors Field tonight, so you'll get to see one of the greats, one of the legends, do some damage at Coors Field. Now, I was looking at this, and again, the Angels and Ohtani have not played a ton, interleague play, all that stuff, but it's kind of remarkable. Shohei Ohtani has played 4 games at Coors Field. For whatever reason, it's got to be injury related, I'm guessing. No, it wouldn't be. No, it just now hit me. He's played 4 games at Coors Field. He has only started 1 of them. It appears, as I'm just thinking out loud here, that the other games that were at Coors Field were when the NL still had pitchers hitting. So maybe Shohei Ohtani, who was pretty well DH and pitcher exclusive, was not in those starting lineups. He did start 1 game at Coors Field. In his career, 6 at-bats in the Mile High City, he has 1 hit. No RBIs. He's got 1 hit. He's got a single. That's it. Now, he comes into tonight pretty hot. In the last calendar month, Shohei Ohtani has 13 home runs in under 100 at-bats. It's actually 99. 13 home runs in under 100 at-bats over the past month. Tonight, 8:40, he'll be taking his early game rips against Kyle Freeland. Patrick Sandoval is on the other side. If you're wondering about Ohtani odds of him to hit a home run, DraftKings Sportsbook has him at plus 275 to go yard tonight. Why not, huh? Why not? So we got a big series in Cincinnati, Reds and Braves. Got a probably fun series between the Angels, Ohtani, Trout, and the Rockies. And then for our 4th item that will matter, we've got a baseball series in London. Ah, yes, baseball is back in jolly old England. I couldn't believe this. I could not believe the last games. I remember these games when the Yankees and the Red Sox went to London, but that was way back in 2019. This is set to be the first London series since 2019. Cardinals and Cubs. Tomorrow and Sunday are when these 2 games will be played. Now, mentioning 2019, the last time, that was the Red Sox and the Yankees. And you might recall that those games featured a lot of scoring. How much scoring? In those 2 games back in 2019, we had 50 total runs in 2 games between the Red Sox and the Yankees. Now, we'll see what we get this weekend from the Cubs and the Cardinals. I can tell you this. They play at London Stadium, which is, nowadays, it's a soccer stadium for West Ham United. It is the old Olympic Stadium. You might remember when London hosted the Olympics, what was that, 20 years ago or so? This is where they did track and field. And so they're turning it into a baseball stadium. When the Yankees and Red Sox came to London, the distance to center field was 385 feet. I think it's going to be that way again. Now, Heather's jumping ahead of here. She wants to look at this food. Look at the food. We're going to have food. We're going to have an American food at these ball games in London. That's right. That is a 2-foot. I think they call that the broomstick hot dog. It's a 2-foot sausage covered in everything. You can also get 2 feet of nachos if you'd rather do that. Now, stateside, this is not all that alarming. Like, I get it. Most of us say, holy cow, I'd never eat that. Some of us, I'd take a shot at it. Really, I would. That hot dog is supposed to feed 4 people. We'd see. Maybe. It's the broomstick hot dog. Now, there's a lot of things they're Americanizing here with the food this weekend. Because, again, this is only Game 3 and Game 4 in the history of baseball over in London. I saw another thing. There's some kind of, I guess this is I live in St. Louis, but there in honor of St. Louis, they're having like a giant hamburger where the bun is a donut, which I've seen before, but let me just tell you, that's not really a St. Louis thing. Like if they had toasted raviolis, if they had Ted Drew's frozen custard, if they had gooey butter cake, if they had that stuff, that would be St. Louis. The hamburger inside of a donut, not really a St. Louis thing. Anyway, the other key thing I noticed, because this was mentioned in the papers over in England, they will have beer sales in the stands, which you might think, what's the big deal? They don't do that in Europe. Soccer matches, they don't sell beer in the stands. In fact, in soccer matches, you have to go outside. You cannot be in the stands drinking beer. There's like a designated area, like smokers. It's for drinkers. But for baseball this weekend in London with the Cardinals and the Cubs, they're going to have beer sales in the stands. Exciting. Over 60,000 for game 1 and game 2. So the biggest crowds this year in baseball are going to be in London. Over 60,000. And I think even my cousins will be there, at least for one of the 2 games. 1:10 is the start tomorrow. That game's on Fox. And then Sunday's a really early start. 10:10 a.m. ESPN has the coverage of the Cardinals and the Cubs from London. Finally, our 5th sports item that will matter. News coming out yesterday. And man, we just can't let the Washington Wizards alone this week, can we? News coming out yesterday that the Qatar Investment Authority, which is a sovereign wealth fund of the Qatari government, they are going to be investing and buying a share in the Washington Wizards / Capitals / Mystics. You see that emblem there, Monumental. Monumental Sports and Entertainment is the current entity that owns all 3 of those teams. Ted Leonis, probably heard of him. This is his group. They own the Wizards, the Mystics, the Capitals. Qatar Investment Authority is going to buy a portion of that ownership stake. Not a majority or anything like that. In fact, per NBA rules and per NHL rules, at most, the most that the sovereign wealth fund of the Qataris can invest is 20%. I don't know if they're going to do 20%. We'll have to see whenever the ink is dry. But if you've been paying attention to this, I'm not going to sit here and make a political statement about Qatar, but we all saw the World Cup. Probably have heard the reporting about the Qatari regime. It's pretty well just a royal family. It's not a real government. They're not elected. But what they have done, in effect, is take all this crazy oil money, and they are doing what many call sports washing. Yes, our reputation on the global stage is in the mud. But if we take our money and we apply it to Western sports franchises in England and now in the U.S., we will sports wash our money. No, again, I'm not going to get into politics. What I'm going to point out is this is the first time that a sovereign wealth fund, has bought an ownership stakes in North American sports. Like I said, it's been going on in England for many. Hey, spend your money how you want. And per NBA rules, as of now, you will never have a majority ownership with a sovereign wealth fund, but you do have partial ownership. And I get it. Hey, that's the way the world works. I know Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, came out and said, hey, check out who owns all your favorite companies. Your American company. There's sovereign wealth money in that. But this is the first time in North America this sovereign wealth fund ownership is going to take place. Not official, but reports are certainly coming out and certainly going to be a done deal probably in the next month or 2. As the Wizards, I guess, are going to do their rebuild with oil money. Is how they're choosing to rebuild. Those are the 5 things that will matter on this Friday. Quick break here. When we come back, we are opening up another pack. These things never stop. 1990 Donruss Baseball. We'll take a stroll down memory lane next, right here on BSN.
The great Bill Parcells would always say, beware of the celebrity quarterback. And there is no more celebrity quarterback than Russell Wilson. The disease of me permeates through Russell Wilson. Well, now this season, you know what? You get a Bill Parcells guy and Sean Payton. You know what? Nobody wanted this job in Denver. They had to pay an astronomical salary because nobody wanted to come in here and deal with Russell Wilson and that big contract. Now, Peyton says that Wilson is going to be a part of the team this year. See, Hackett didn't enforce that. So Peyton will come in, and you know what? Russell Wilson will continue to be Russell Wilson. He did it to Pete Carroll. What makes you think he's not going to do it to Sean Payton? I got a better name for MVP this year. How about Geno Smith, the guy who replaced Russell Wilson in Seattle?
Time now for the Daily Pack Rip on the 5-Pack with Kyle Elfrink.
Corey Parson going off the board with that Geno Smith MVP call. That's a part of a better morning. You can catch it Monday through Friday. Corey, Howard, Britt, Andrew, they all get together 8 a.m. each and every weekday morning right here on the Better Sports Network. We are getting set to take our weekend off. We'll be back next Monday at 12 Eastern. Before that, though, we got to do a pack rip, and it's one of our favorites. Maybe I shouldn't say favorite. Maybe I should just say it's one of our regulars. They're back. Every bar has a regular, and even here on the 5-Pack, we have a regular. 1990 Upper Deck Baseball. Let's take a look, shall we? These are the red Donruss. Now, there's a couple of these that are air cards, and for whatever reason, Donruss put like a couple of stars up by the name. I'm just doing a quick look. I don't see any stars here. But on occasion, you'll get a 1990 Upper Deck air card that can be worth a lot because they just out of nowhere threw a star on the top of the card. We will lead off with a star, the great Dave Winfield. Dave Winfield probably doesn't get the credit he should. For those who don't know much about Dave Winfield, this guy was a stud in baseball, football, and basketball. Absolute stud. Killed it in baseball, made the Hall of Fame. I think he was drafted in the NBA draft. Might have even been drafted in the NFL. But he had a long, long career. Interesting with this 1990 card, we don't get an action photo of Dave Winfield because he missed all of 1989 with an injury. Now, he came back and played a few more years. In fact, he won a World Series, I do believe, with Toronto. Yeah, he was a part of that team. So he didn't play at all, though, in 1989. Pretty good run with the Yankees. I mean, gosh, 85 through 88. Here were the home run totals, 26, 24, 27, and 25. He was sitting at 357 home runs at this point. He would eventually end up with more than 400. Steve Olin is next. Now, I'm going off the top of my head here. I apologize if I'm incorrect. I believe Steve Olin of the Cleveland Indians at the time was the player who tragically passed away and died in a fishing/boating accident during spring training down in Florida. And I think Bobby Ojeda was on the boat with Steve Olin, and Ojeda had a big, big injury. And Steve Olin, who at the time of this card, let's see, he would have been 25 years old. So he was in his late 20s because this happened in the early 90s, maybe soon after this 1990 set. But Steve Olin actually died and was killed during that boating accident. It was a big, big story back in spring training, early 90s there. So Steve Olin never really got a chance to enjoy his major league career and our life as a whole. Next, Alex Trevino, catcher of the Houston Astros, pretty well a nobody. Jay Buhner, not a nobody here. It looks like Jay Buhner might have a little hair at this point. Eventually, Jay Buhner just gave up the ghost. And like so many of us, shaved it all off. And that's when he became Bones Buhner. Because then he had the look, Jay Buhner. He and Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr., these guys were Mariner legends back in the 90s. Buhner, a good one. Big slugger there. Speaking of sluggers, Kevin Mitchell. I think in 89, was 89 the MVP year? I think it was. So this is, at the time of this printing, your reigning NL MVP. That 1989 season, Mitchell, 47 homers, 125 RBIs, hit 291. He scored 100 runs. He only stole 3 bases, though. But Kevin Mitchell, big, big time year in 1989. Him and Will Clark, they might have finished 1-2 in that MVP voting. They were both incredible. Todd Zeile, I think we've had this card before, the rated rookie of Todd Zeile. Todd Zeile was like top 2, top 3 prospect in baseball when this card came out. He did not live up, although he had a great career. I mean, It's funny. It's kind of like the Wembanyama thing. If Victor Wembanyama does not make the Hall of Fame, his career will go down as a disappointment. To a stretch, that's kind of what Todd Zill thought. I mean, Todd Zill played baseball for 15, 20 years, but he was never great like he was supposed to be. Here's another rated rookie, back-to-back NL catchers who were rated rookies. Sandy Alomar Jr. That's a pretty nice combo there. Now, Zill eventually moved to third, but Alomar Jr., he stayed as a catcher. Here you see him up with the Padres. He's eventually traded to the Indians. That's pretty well where he played a majority of his career. Angels pitcher Bob McClure. We continue to pull Ron Gant cards. Literally, every time I open up a pack of baseball cards, I'm getting another Ron Gant piece of cardboard. Pete Harnisch, starting pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles. Here's our Diamond Kings. We've had this one before, too. Jim Deshaies was your Donruss Diamond King rep from the Houston Astros. Here's Jim Gott. This is almost too crazy because I think, and this happened all the time in the late 80s, early 90s, where the pack started out different. Like we had not gotten Kevin Mitchell or Alex Trevino or Jay Buhner or Dave Winfield. And then all of a sudden you start getting the same guys that you've already gotten before. Now, we opened a pack probably about a week and a half ago. And I'll have to go back through the records. Yes, I keep records. Actually, I don't. But anyway, I think all of these cards, how many? 4, 8. The final 10 cards in this pack, we all got like 2 weeks ago. Like I remember we got Jim Gott. We had Rick Dempsey. We had Pat Tabler. I remember telling you about Pat Tabler. He was awesome with the bases loaded. We had Lee Stevens. We had Mark Carrion. We had all these guys. And this is the frustrations that you would get with the overproduction of baseball cards in the 90s. Is I just flew through this entire pack of cards because I started going through and I said, I already seen all these guys. I've already seen all these cards. Throw them in the trash. And that was the agony of being a card collector in the early 90s, is the way they would cut these sheets and the way they would, divvy out the cards and package them up is you would often get the same run of cards, the same run of players in different packs. So thank you, 1990 Donruss, for reminding us why we hated that era of the junk wax pack. We got like 5 fresh cards. That's it. What a disappointing pack rip. Guess we might as well call it a week, right? Might as well just close up shop and say, we're done. We're finished. We're out of here. I can only stand so much Rick Dempsey in my life. Sorry, Rick. Sorry. Okay, that will do it for our pack rip. Now, next week, I showed this off earlier. Next week, we have the NHL draft. I think that's Wednesday night next week. We got to get into this OHL minor league hockey card set from 1990. Do not ask me why I have this, but like next week, we're going to see a lot of guys drafted out of the OHL, the Ontario Hockey League. We're going to go all the way back to 1990 and see who was in that league. And it's kind of a thin pack, so I think we'll team it up with some Canadian football trading cards, which I've never seen before. So that'll be fun. That and many other packs to come your way next week. I want to thank our producer, Heather Klein. I want to thank you for joining us all this week on the Better Sports Network. Fun weekend ahead. We got golf. We got the College World Series. Got the Reds and the Braves. We got Ohtani in Denver. Baseball in London. We'll be back here Monday to recap it all right here on the